Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. The latest on health and healing coming right at you. First, from Lund University in Sweden. Rosehip supplements can increase energy expenditure and help you lose weight. Now, I remember when I first came into the health field, the vitamin C everyone took was Rosehips. And it was just a powder of the rosehip, and that was it. And everybody thought that was great, and it was. And but then we went on to more high-potency vitamin C, and we forgot about the rosehip. Well, we shouldn't have. Why? Because daily supplements containing rosehip powder may prevent weight gain. This was in a laboratory experiment. In fact, they fed two groups of mice a high-fat diet, the average American diet, in this new study. And then they report the rosehip supplementation appeared to work by increasing energy expenditure, meaning helping your metabolism, and inducing the exchange between brown and white fat. There are two forms of fat tissue in our bodies, white and brown. White fat tissue primarily stores triglycerides and releases fatty acids and bioactive molecules, and these help the body. On the other hand, brown fat tissue can also disperse heat, meaning energy. It's also possible to give white fat tissue the thermogenic characteristics of brown fat, leading to a so-called brown-white fat cells. The researchers fed the lab mice a high-fat diet with or without supplementation rosehip powder. That was the only difference. And then at a dose of approximately 30% of total weight of the diet for 3 months. The results showed that despite no difference between the groups of energy intake, meaning the amount of food they consumed, the rosehip fed group had no body weight gain. And compared to the controls, yes, they had insulin and cholesterol levels impacted. Also, the rosehips had lower cholesterol and lower insulin, and compared to the control group. Therefore, they hypothesized that rosehips could stimulate the brown adipose tissue thermogenic capacity, or may induce browning of the white adipose tissue. In any case, get beyond the science, just go to your health food store online and purchase some organic rosehip powder. All right? If you want to lose weight and want to have more energy, from New York University comes a study about yeast is a cause of cancer, and turmeric, there's your curcumin, the active ingredient in turmeric, can kill both. How about that? It can kill cancer, yes, and it can kill yeast, yes. Back in the 1970s, we had like an epidemic of yeast infections. And there was one man named Dr. Crook down from Alabama. He wrote a book on it. I remember I invited him on my program. It was on WMCA in the early 70s. And he talked about how a lot of women end up with infections and a really off-body smell. And he said this is due to having sugar in the diet or refined carbohydrates, meaning those foods that break down into sugar or glucose, such as bread and white pasta and pretzels, even pizza crust. All that ends up becoming a fermented product in the gut. Not good. So he said you should go on a yeast-free diet and sugar-free diet. And in all of his patients that went on that diet, they all overcame their yeast infections. That time, we began to hear the name Candida. And Candida and yeast infection are indeed one and the same. People can get yeast infections in their colon, and that gives the body and the bowel movement a really, really rancid odor. They can have it in the vagina. They can have it in their throat. They can have it in their lungs. I've seen yeast infections, people with AIDS, that I never will forget this. For those of you who are just new to the program, I had the most advanced holistic healing center in America. It was called the Tri-State Healing Center at 72nd and Broadway for a long time. And people would come in and they would go through a battery of tests We had 22 board-certified physicians, nurses, the first top holistic doctor, dentist, Dr. Omai Gerdal. We had acupuncturists. We had chiropractors. We had all these different specialties. And so we treated the body holistically. Every Monday, we would sit, all of us, in our morning, and someone would present the cases and what was the success of a particular treatment, and I would create the protocols. And we saved so many lives, thousands of lives, 1,200 people with AIDS alone. But the AIDS individuals had something unique that the other cancer patients, heart disease patients, arthritis patients, dementia patients did not have: an overgrowth of yeast. And I remember being in the office when this one patient was there, new, and the doctor asked me what I was going to suggest. And I talked with the patient, and as I was talking with him, when his mouth opened, I saw it looked like someone took cotton balls and just stuffed his whole mouth with cotton. So the doctor took a tongue depressor, one of those little wooden tongue depressors, and just started scraping off the yeast and putting it into this bowl. And I couldn't believe how much was in there. And I said, did he have x-rays and MRIs to see if that's gotten into his lungs? Indeed, it had. So there was a special protocol for anything that infected the lungs, like pneumocystis carinii pneumonia. And in about 6 months, everything cleared up. Within a year and a half, he was AIDS-free, no HIV in his body. And we had all the records to prove this. In any case, that was just one of many cases I saw of yeast overgrowth. So the more sugar you have, the more soft drinks, the more artificial sweeteners, the more yeast you're going to have. Pretzels, potato chips, French fries, all of these can produce yeast overgrowth. And you don't want to get yeast and a bacteria in your urethra because that can go to the bladder and cause all forms of infections. That's where people are suggested to have their organic sugar-free cranberry juice in the morning or concentrate. It really does work. Along with vitamin C, the two together can knock off a lot of that infection in the bladder. In any case, this is an article published in the peer-reviewed journal Critical Reviews in Microbiology, and it lends support to the concept that opportunistic candida albicans, that's the yeast, infection may not just be a consequence of cancer, but it is actively contributing cause of cancer itself. The study provided important background information to this controversial subject. There's currently increasing concern about the relationship between microbial infections and cancer. More and more studies support the view that there is an association, above all, when the causal agents are bacteria or viruses. And that review adds to this, summarizing evidence that the opportunistic fungus Candida albicans increases the risk of carcinogenesis and metastasis. So until recently, Candida had fundamentally been linked to cancerous processes as it's an opportunistic pathogen, that it takes advantage of the immunosuppressed state of patients, particularly due to chemotherapy. Almost every patient that has come into my office who's been under traditional chemotherapy or radiation treatment has no immune system and has no good bacteria in their gut. They've got bad bacteria, and they all have overgrowth of Candida. So I've seen this. And in any case, they found that by using turmeric, that's the herb, and I don't believe it should be used. I believe that if you want to get rid of yeast and cancers and a lot of other problems, that you should use the active ingredient in turmeric, which is curcumin. You can't get curcumin without turmeric. But turmeric, let's just put it this way. If I had a cancer and someone says, you know, there's quercetin and that's really good against cancer, and eat an apple, eat an onion, and you'll get quercetin, I'd say, great. Well, how many onions or apples would I have to eat? About a bushel, maybe 2 bushels a day. I can't do that. Why not just get what is in the apple concentrated? Get concentrated, like take 2, 3, 4, 5,000 milligrams throughout a day of let's say quercetin. So there's a point where you stop the mindset of what is good to prevent a condition that you can get from the diet, and what happens when you have a pathology, and just a good diet, exceptional diet, won't reverse that. And that's when you have to get what is known as functional nutrients, functional foods, meaning more concentrated. And that's what we've seen here when dealing with cancer. So they're saying that sugar and alcohol both increase your risk of cancer. That's what the study shows. So clearly, if sugar and its conversion to ethanol produce a reducing agent that concentrates in aldehyde, that's not good for your liver, for your kidneys. They have to filter all this out. And so that's where good old curcumin comes in. And by the way, a paper published in the European Journal of Pharmacology reveals that the primary polyphenol in turmeric, which is curcumin, may be the perfect way to fight cancers that have a fungal component. The study addresses the concerning problem of invasive fungal infections as a major cause of both morbidity and mortality in cancer patients. So if anything, if you have cancer, you've got to stay on a clean, anti-sugar, anti-alcohol in any amount, and anti-processed carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, your junk foods. You got to stay off. You got to do a lot of green juicing, have a lot of berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, boysenberries, goji berries. You need them all. All right. And that's what this study showed. Curcumin is the natural alternative. It is antifungal. It kills yeast. It kills fungus. Activity against different strains of Candida, Cryptococcus, Aspergillus, Trichosporin, and others. So it wipes them all out. I just believe the average American should be taking curcumin every day. Now, mind you, in countries where they eat curry all the time, in the subcontinent, most of India and Pakistan, you see it really working in the Ayurvedic tradition against funguses and also against cancer. Just, something that's important that we're not paying attention to, that's been proven, it's in the peer-reviewed literature, comes from the Library of Medicine. Now, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, a soybean protein blocks LDL cholesterol production. That's the bad cholesterol, reducing risk of metabolic disease. A simple protein in soybeans blocks the production of a liver enzyme involved in the metabolism of triglycerides and LDL, the low-density lipoprotein. And that's in a brand new study. So consuming soybeans, that's good, and rich in what is called let me spell it for you, conglycin, conglycinin. It has the potential to reduce LDL cholesterol and lower the risk of metabolic diseases like atherosclerosis, diabetes, and fatty liver disease. That's according to the director, professor of food science and human nutrition at the University of Illinois. All right? Something that simple. Once again, we're dealing with something that's not complicated. Having organic, non-GMO soybeans into our meal. Okay? And the soybeans out of a can, you can put them in a salad. You can, saute them with vegetables. Make sure you get them into your diet, right? Because anything that can lower the triglyceride levels and homocysteine levels and C-reactive protein levels and fibrinogen levels are all good for you. That comports with a longer life. And from a university in Spain, the first evidence that mindfulness can help adolescents overcome traumas. In 2021 alone, it is estimated that 1 billion children around the world experience some kind of violence or neglect, ranging from sexual to physical to emotional abuse. Now, such experiences during childhood represent a very significant risk to children's physical and mental health and shorten their life expectancy. In this regard, an international study in which the trauma was measured and the outcome, the scientific evidence showed that carrying out a mindfulness-type meditation intervention in combination with artistic expression activities and psychological therapy, talk therapy, is really good for trauma. And it's beneficial, especially for adolescents who have suffered from some traumatic experiences. And it was published in scientific reports. And it shows that this approach, which is a non-pharmaceutical approach, gives rise to epigenetic changes in the trauma-sensitive biological pathways associated with significant reduction in post-traumatic stress syndrome. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of people suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. I was helping Vietnam vets, for free, by the way, at the Tri-State Healing Center, overcome the consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, but also Agent Orange. During the Iraq War, we had a lot of people suffering from Gulf War syndrome. We helped them get back their life. We filmed all this, by the way. You can see these people in some of the documentaries, before and after, and the results are just amazing. In any case, it's all about having non-invasive therapies that allow a person to change how the epigenetics, the larger genetics, gene consequence, meaning you're in a battle, the environment you're in, your confrontation with the enemy, all that implants itself within our DNA. That then means that our DNA can change for the worst and then predisposes us for up to 7 generations ahead. What we experience at one point in our life can manifest in people who are almost 170 years in the future. So think about this. Think about all those people who said, well, life's just, it's here and then it's gone. And we're just machines. And sometimes the machine, if we don't keep it well tuned and just like our cars, we break down and we need some mechanistic way of approaching it. Well, that's the problem with all healing. It shouldn't be mechanistic. It should be humanistic. We should look at the human being as a sacred being, and therefore the sacred being living in a physical body is subject to everything in their environment. Hence, everything, everyone, for the better or worse, impacts our genes. We don't even know this. We're frequently too young to process this in an intelligent manner. But later on, when we are very shy and we don't want to open up and talk with people about anything, we're thinking, well, that's just a shy person. That's their personality. How do you know? How do you know that they didn't have a grandmother, great-grandmother, great-grandfather who was abused verbally or physically for speaking out? And then that was locked, that trauma was locked in their genes and just kept being passed down epigenetically. That's a life energy with a message in it. That cannot be reproduced without energy. But hold on, if we're mechanistic, we have eyes and heart and kidneys and liver, hands, move, muscles. What's the only thing that's missing when you're dead? Energy. What is the only thing that's never studied in medical school or in science classes? The energy of life. At another time, I will share with you, probably on a progressive commentary hour, a whole hour on just understanding why we are not just mechanical beings, that the World Economic Forum, and Klaus Schwab, and especially its leading advocate, Dr. Harari, believes we'll get under your skin. We'll put a chip in there. We can control everything. No. Dr. Harari, prove that the mind exists. Prove it. I'd like to see a scientific study. Where's the mind? Is it in the cranium? Where? And how does the mind impact every single cell in the body? Show it to me. I'd like to see it. Oh, and by the way, when we die, that energy that was there, where's it go? Because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. No human beings ever created energy. You take something that already exists that has energy. If you have water and you have turbines, you can create hydroelectric. If you have a solar panel, you collect the sun's energy and you magnify that, then you can create power. You had to have it to begin with. So simple question, where does it go? I'd like to hear your response. And finally, from the University of California, San Francisco, A small daily amount of zinc reduces DNA damage. You've heard it many times that zinc is an essential mineral to be included in a daily diet to promote immunity, reproduce good health, help your skin and your vision. Now, scientists have suggested a modest increase in the dietary zinc, just 4 milligrams extra to your daily diet consumption, improves cellular health and reduces DNA damage. Wow. What's the number one reason that we end up aging and dying? DNA damage. Reduce the DNA damage, repair the DNA damage, and you put a lot of extra years onto your life. So zinc may be a less familiar dietary mineral than iron or calcium or sodium or magnesium, but it's an essential part to help our metabolism and our health. Everyone, young and old, requires a trace element regularly to survive. Zinc is present in every cell, every organ, every bone, every tissue, every fluid in our bodies, and adequate levels of this micronutrient in the body is absolutely essential for strong immunity, neuropsychologic performance, and overall growth. And deficiencies of zinc can lead to diarrhea, pneumonia, malaria, even as well as coughing and fatigue, fever, and stomach pain. So just get your daily zinc and add a little extra. I suggest 30 milligrams a day. All right. This was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Just one last thing. From the Medical University of Warsaw, higher physical activity, meaning exercising, is associated with reduced respiratory infection susceptibility in children. So the more active your children are, the more athletic they are, the more rambunctious they are, getting out and running, playing. Well, that high level of daily physical activity reduces their susceptibility to upper respiratory tract infections like the common cold. And this was in a study at the Pediatric Research Institute, where it was published in Pediatric Research. And it just gives us an idea that exercise is good at all ages, but especially for younger children. That's the latest on health and healing. Now, go to GaryNull.com. You'll see all the articles. You see all that information there. It's there. It's free. Enjoy it. Benefit from it. If you find an article is important, a video is important, share it. Send it out to people who could also benefit. And we've got a lot more coming at you, but we're going to take a break first. And just remember, we need good, honest, helpful advice. We need solutions to problems, but we have to be honest about the problem. If you're not honest about the problem, how can you possibly have a solution? Where is the best place that I know of to get all that quality information? Well, there's several good platforms. Global Research is one. Gerald Salante's Trends Journal, top of the top. That lets you know about the world we live in, the consequences of bad actions, and where everything's likely to go. And he has been extremely accurate. He's around the 90% accurate rate over the last 20 years alone. No one else has been that accurate about everything in society. And so you also have the Townsend Letter for doctors and patients. So you have good platforms. But probably the best platform to get someone to tell you about the world we live in and the truth of it, Progressive Radio Network, PRN.Live. We have new hosts. We have hosts that have been around for a long time, sharing you the latest information in an honest way. These are real educators. PRN.Live. Back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.